Lieutenant Colonel Jack Churchill, a British soldier, went into the Second World War with a bagpipe, broadsword, and a longbow standing in the front line. But he still manages to come out alive and even managed to bind about 40 German soldiers in the course of the battle. His unconventional approach and strategy in the war earned him the name Mad Jack and Fighting Jack. John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill was born in 1906 in Colombo, British Ceylon, to Alec Churchill and Eleanor Elizabeth. His father was an engineer in the Ceylon Civil Service. The nature of his father's work made them move a lot. They lived in Dormansland. Surrey moved to British Hong Kong, then to England. Jack had two younger siblings, Thomas and Robert Churchill. Jack studied at King William's College and graduated from the Royal Military College in Sandhurst in 1926. In his early years, Jack learned to play the bagpipe and was good at archery. These skills landed him a minor role in the American film, The Thief of Baghdad, in the year 1924. From college, he served with the Manchester Regiment in Burma, a country in Southeast Asia. 10 years later, in 1936, Jack left the army to work as an editor in Kenya and landed himself a model job. In 1938, Jack Churchill was cast in another film, A Yank at Oxford. Jack's remarkable familiarity with the bagpipe won him second place during a military piping competition, and in 1939 he was chosen to represent Great Britain in the World Archery Championship. These achievements show how skilled Jack was with his instruments. Jack's life as a civilian was short-lived when he resumed as a soldier in 1939. He was called to resume his military duties as a commander. During that period, Germany had attacked Poland, so Jack was assigned to the Manchester Regiment, which was deployed to France. On their expedition, Churchill refused to go to war without his broadsword, longbow, and bagpipe. On the mission, Jack was able to shoot a German with his longbow and led his team safely through the fight using his unconventional weapons. When Jack was asked by one of the generals about why he carried them, he said, "A soldier who goes to war without a sword was not properly dressed." In 1941, Churchill was deployed to Norway as the second in command of the No. 3 Commando in Operation Archery. They were sent to raid the German garrison in the northern part of Norway on the Vagsø and Maløy Islands. They were to destroy the German fish oil production factories and other facilities they used to make explosives. Before charging on the battlefield, Jack pulled out his bagpipe and played March of the Cameron Men, after which he charged onto the battlefield with his sword in front of him, swatting away the rain of bullets flying dangerously around his head. He would be seen doing this while yelling at the top of his lungs. This earned him the name Mad Jack. People who saw him said he was either mad or very brave for his choice of approach during the battle. Despite his questionable weaponry, when the German soldiers saw the man holding a sword charging at them, their fight didn't take long because they surrendered. Jack made it out of the battle in Norway alive and was awarded a military cross. You would think that a soldier on the field with such weapons would not survive one battle, however. Jack defied all those odds. Jack led his men as they bound hundreds of German captives, and on their ride across the shores, an image of Churchill was taken of him playing his pipe in the ship, while his troop sat and danced in victory on their way back to Scotland. This earned him a second military cross. In 1943, Mad Jack led No. 2 Commando as a commander to Italy on a raid mission. He led the team through Sicily during the Salerno landings. When Jack and his men got to the town, they deduced a clever plan. He grouped his 50 soldiers into 5 groups of 10, and formed a 6th group consisting of only him and his corporal, Corporal Russell. He asked them to surround the town of about 100 or more unsuspecting soldiers. Jack commanded his soldiers to all charge into the town yelling "Commando." The Germans, who were confused by the yelling and caught by surprise, were in no time subdued. The duo team of Commander Hack and Corporal Russell single-handedly captured about 40 German soldiers who did not dare fight back or refuse defeat. Once again, Mad Jack led a victorious battle, and when they returned home, he was once again awarded not 1, but 2 DSOs, Distinguished Service Orders. Jack Churchill joined the war in Yugoslavia in 1944, commanding his troops of commandos. The Scottish Army joined forces with the Marshal Tito partisans on the coast in Dalmatia. They were ordered to take claim of a hill that had been in possession of the Germans. During this battle, the fearless soldier was captured by the enemy. Before his capture, Jack led his men on the battlefield as he swung his sword and fired his arrows. However, he was left as the last man standing. The commander did not lose hope, but rather in the midst of the bloody war, took out his pipe and began to play, "Will ye not come back again?" Unfortunately, a grenade exploded beside him, leaving him unconscious. The Germans then captured him to their camp for questioning in Berlin. Churchill was suspected to be related to Winston Churchill, which he wasn't. After further questioning, he gave them no valuable information apart from the fact that he was an actor. The German then realized that he was of no value since he had no political affiliation, which they could use as leverage. So they moved him to a concentration camp in Sachsenhausen, where other soldiers captured by the Germans were held. But for a gallant soldier like Mad Jack, he managed to dig a tunnel through the cells and escaped with the help of some of his brave inmates. They planned to escape through the coast to Sweden, but were caught in the way. Churchill was then sent to another camp in Austria, but once again, Jack escaped from that camp one evening when there was an issue with the lighting system, leaving the whole camp dark. The commander took hold of the opportunity and escaped to Italy. On his way, he came across American soldiers, seeing as they were allies in the war. You would think that he was finally safe and free, but looking at the times they were in, Churchill had to find a way to convince these soldiers that he was indeed a British commander. With his rough appearance, it was hard to believe him, but he managed to convince them. In 1945, Mad Jack was sent to Burma to fight in the bloody war against Japan. However, by the time he got there, the war was over. Atomic bombs were already dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leaving the Japanese to surrender and ending the Second World War. The war-crazed soldier was not very pleased about the turn of events and said that he wished the war would have continued for another 10 years. At this point, even I am starting to believe that this soldier is really mad, probably from all the explosions he survived. After the war, Jack became a parachutist and was the second in command to the 1st Battalion of the Highland Light Infantry and was then posted to Mandatory Palestine. During his service there, Jack got caught up in the infamous Hadassah medical convoy massacre. Jewish doctors who were being conveyed along with medical supplies were ambushed by Arabs. Churchill and his men were ordered by the British military to stay out of the conflict since it wasn't their fight, but Mad Jack was itching to fight and couldn't help but join with the help of some of his men. It was a bloody battle. Just like his battle times, Jack stood among flying weapons and faced the Arabs. Jack and his team were able to save 700 Jewish soldiers, students, and patients. I must say, this man's approach to conflict is always absurd, but it serves a good course. In 1955, the Maverick took to surfing and became the first man to ride on a tidal bore, and he achieved this on a surfboard he built himself. Lieutenant Colonel Jack Churchill finally retired from the military in 1959, but that did not change his unconventional lifestyle. He always stands out even when he returns to live as a civilian. People would be startled by the man who was always seen throwing his suitcase out of the train whenever he boarded one, but that is not because he was insane, but simply because he was throwing his luggage onto his house lawn so he doesn't have to carry it down the train. Quite is a peculiar approach. Jack died in 1996 at 86 years old. He didn't die lonely. He was already married to Rosamund Margaret Denny and had 2 children with her.